It feels like yesterday when Rockstar released its so-called Definitive Edition, or Defective Edition, as some of us like to call it after the mess that it caused. I mean, we all love remakes and remasters of our favorite games, especially when the games are so good that all they need is a fresh new coat of paint and a few tweaks here and there. So naturally, I was excited to hear that Rockstar was bringing back the classic GTA trilogy with more than just a fresh look. But when the Definitive Edition finally came out back in 2021, it was riddled with bugs and glitches, and Rockstar had the audacity to ask for $60 for that package. $60 for ruining some of our favorite classics. So I did what any sensible gamer would do, wait for them to patch things up. And now after 3 years of waiting, I decided to dive back into the Defective Edition to see if it's worth my $60, unless of course you find it on sale. Anyways, I started with the oldest game in the collection, GTA 3. The one that probably needed the most work because, well, it's ancient, let's just admit that. Seriously, it's like playing a relic from the past, but it still holds a special place in my heart. It deserved a complete remake, something to bring it up to modern standards. But what did we get instead? The Definitive Edition, which feels about as definitive as a knockoff brand of cereal. What's crazy is that even when you bump up the graphics up to the highest settings, you're hit right at the start with this bizarre pixelated wave effect at the bottom of the screen, which is weird and should have been fixed right off the bat, but I guess that would have required extra time and effort. And it's not just GTA 3. You will find this bug is in all 3 games in the collection. Like, seriously? Grove Street Games, the guys behind the remaster, seem to leave a ton of things untouched, like the stiff camera movement that still feels like it's been stuck in the early 2000s. Sure, we can see some improvements as well, like the combat animations were better, but NPCs still walk like they've had a super rough day at the gym. And don't even get me started on the vehicle handling in Vice City. It feels like a totally different game, like I've put in on-speed cheat code multiple times, and there's no way to cancel it. I mean, they didn't need to do any of that. The game was great as is, but it's not just the gameplay, they even managed to make the graphics worse. Let's go back to GTA 3. I remember it having this dark, gritty atmosphere, but the remaster version makes it look like a freaking cartoon show. It really takes away that uniquely dangerous vibe that it had in the original version. Sure, the graphics weren't too realistic back then, but at least the atmosphere matched the whole mafia thriller vibe that the game wanted to create. This remaster, it's like playing Crazy Taxi as a kid. Even the characters look rough, but I was kind of willing to let that slide. I mean, the game is ancient, so I didn't expect every character to be super detailed or realistic. But then I saw Misty, and wow, they really did her dirty. I'm never gonna unsee that. Like, ever. Alright, before we move on, I just want to quickly tell you about RP Grand. If you're into GTA 5 RP or have been wanting to try it out, it is definitely worth checking out. It's a server packed with a ton of stuff, from a well-built faction system to a huge selection of cars and clothing options to make your character stand out however you like. And getting started is super easy, just hit the link in the description to sign up for free. If you register through the website, you can even grab one of 3 premium cars to start off with, which I think is a pretty nice way to kick things off. They've also rolled out a new battle pass, which unlocks exclusive rewards and adds some extra fun to your RP experience. And for those of you who like gaming on the go, there's even a mobile version now, so you can play RP Grand right on your phone with almost all the same features as the PC version. Don't forget to enter my promo code INTERGTA when you sign up. That'll get you a special gift I've arranged just for my subscribers, along with some extra in-game currency to give you a bit of a head start. So, whether you're looking for a new RP experience or just want to try it out for the first time, give RP Grand a shot. I'll see you there. And now, let's get back to the topic. So, the real question is, what exactly have they improved over these past 3 years? Well, the characters were supposedly updated and enhanced, but if I am being honest, most of them just look different, not better. However, one of the things that I am glad they got around to fixing this time is the rain effect. If you played it upon launch, you'd know just how annoyingly bad rain was, especially how it made driving a car an absolute nightmare. Glad that's past us now, and so are many of the bugs and glitches that made this game totally unplayable at launch. So at least it's playable now. Vice City was considerably better than the GTA 3, but it brought its own baggage of issues. Were they game-breaking? Well, not exactly, but they were annoying enough to make a gamer like me quit more times than I'd care to admit. Vice City looked good, there's no doubt about that. It was like using a good visual mod to enhance the graphics, but then it hit me. I could have just used a mod too and probably saved the money and also got rid of the bugs that weren't even there in the first place. But yeah, let's not get there. The issues I faced were quite minor, like some some pop-up texts getting stuck on the screen. For example, after failing the mission, the text "Mission failed" would just sit there, staring me right in the eye, reminding me how I suck at this game. But the worst one, as I mentioned earlier, was driving. It was the most annoying thing of all. But it wasn't limited to just me. Those NPCs started driving like they had somewhere super important to be, like yesterday. Let's talk about the character models now, because they surely didn't forget to cut corners in Vice City too, especially when it comes to, say, designing the supporting characters. Tommy was great, no doubt about that, but that's until you looked at his expressions. I can't believe how they made it worse than a game that came out 20 years ago. I mean, look at his eyes. They're just fixed there, which makes him look creepy. But that's not it. Take a look at Diaz. They've fattened him up even more while squeezing his head in. But it doesn't stop at the characters. For a game that's supposed to offer better graphics, I really think it should at least have decent reflections and shadows, and Vice City kinda lingers in between. Sometimes, yeah, they work, but other times they simply don't for whatever reason. But is it really that bad? Actually not. Fixes have been made over these past 3 years, and the games are in a better state, I guess. One thing I can appreciate is that the original storylines, dialogues, and those unique features we all love are still intact. That's definitely a win. Plus, they're using the Unreal Engine, so you do see some improvements, like more detailed vegetation, better lighting, smoother animations, and a slight upgrade to the water effects. For games from the early 2000s, those are significant steps up. I mean, modders have been doing similar upgrades for years, sure, but they often take a lot of time, and trust me, I've been there. It can cause serious performance issues even on high-end PCs. But the thing is, despite using one of the best game engines out there, the devs just couldn't get that level of polish, or they just didn't want to. It obviously shows lack of passion. Everything seemed so rushed, and there's a perfectly sensible explanation behind it. And for that, we have to move on to San Andreas, which is probably the best remastered version out of the 3, but again, not without its vices. Besides making CJ look like Will Smith, they have made quite some changes to the visuals and the character models. Luckily, the differences aren't too significant, and many of the characters actually do look better than the originals, which also makes the cutscenes more interesting. Overall, I'd say San Andreas is the most playable of the 3 without causing you to rage quit every few minutes with a new bug popping up. It almost feels like the developers put a bit more effort into this one. That's until you realize that most of the textures used in this remaster are simply upscaled from the mobile version of the game. This becomes quite apparent when you pay attention to the little details, like some of the shirt textures which seem to have been mismatched, layering a diffuse texture with the wrong normal map. Or the water physics, for instance, has totally changed. In the original game, when you jumped for a high space and landed into the water, you'd normally get sunk in a little, which was realistic. But in the remaster, you kind of just hit the water and awkwardly freeze right then and there. Even the crosshair looks too big for a game played on PC or console. It kinda suggests that they've used the mobile port and upscaled it with the help of AI, because a human designer would have caught things like this texture mismatch in the first place, unless, of course, they didn't bother playtesting. But what about the sound effects? Luckily, they have all the original ones, which we all loved. Unfortunately, though, they decided to compress the audio files, making the audio quality noticeably worse. Good thing they didn't do that with the music as well. Now, my biggest concern for the definitive edition is that it doesn't have that charm that the originals had. The atmosphere is just not there anymore. It's become more cartoony than anything else. And sure, I'll admit it, it's not as bad as it was at launch. There are fewer bugs and the gameplay is more stable. But overall, the definitive edition just doesn't feel right. It looks cheap, and it's missing the vibe that made the classic so memorable. So for someone like me, who wants to keep the immersion of the original intact while enjoying the best version of these remasters, here's my advice to you. Use mods. And while it isn't easy to find mods for definitive edition, thanks to Rockstar, you can still score some good ones to solve most of the problems. Some talented modders have done their best to bring back some of the magic. They re-added the fog that made the game world feel larger, improved the characters' faces so they don't look so plastic, and even tweaked the vehicle handling to make driving bearable. They also restored the music that Rockstar removed due to licensing issues. Also, there's a mod that brings back those nostalgic PS2 colors, improves weapon sounds, and gives us better textures. And there's even a mod that adds dynamic situations to the world, like NPCs helping each other fix cars or gangsters chilling on Grove Street. I have to admit, But even with all the mods available, it wasn't enough to fix this mess. The definitive edition still hindered from achieving the original atmosphere, and many of the mods got crushed due to Rockstar pushing out updates that would often break those and just destroy modders' work, which is why you can't find many mods out there for the definitive edition. But what you can do to tackle this problem is, don't buy this, or if you have already, try to get a refund and go back to playing the originals. With mods, of course. That's probably the best way to get that authentic classic GTA experience, without having the so-called enhancements ruining or let's say changing things for you. For those players who can look past the flaws and enjoy the games for what they are now, sure, definitive edition still works for them, but I guess I am not taking any chances. I think what these classics need is a remake, and only Rockstar can pull something like that off if they wanted to. But I don't see that happening, especially with GTA 6 coming up. That's going to make Rockstar a boatload of money. What they could do, something that I just don't get, is why offer these remasters as a package for $60, which feels quite excessive. If they had offered each game individually for $20 or $30, that would have been far more reasonable. But asking for $60 for games most of us already own? That's a hard pass for me. And for what? Some minor improvements and a lot of issues that weren't fixed? What if I just wanted to play one of these games for nostalgic purposes? I might have been fine paying those $20 to $30, putting the rest of the games aside, but $60? I think I would just go with the originals with a few mods. Of course, your opinion might be totally different, so let me know what you think about the definitive edition. Is it really worth it, especially now in 2024? As always, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button. It will be a massive help.